Yeah, okay. Yeah, here we are, sitting in the 6538, talking to my son, talking about what? What are we talking about? GI Joe, GI Joe. Yeah, yeah. I worked at GI Joe. That was nice because my son was he was old enough to enjoy the series, but young enough to not exactly know what was going on. And actually, I did. I think I did 3 GI Joes. I played the role of Grunt. They killed off Grunt. They did a two-parter called Worlds Without End, Parts 1 and 2. And actually, I think too, a lot of people said, and what I've heard, what I've read, is it's one of the more successful of the series was Worlds Without an End, Part 2. Yeah, Grunt. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I know a lot of people who worked the series. Wally Burr was a voice director. Wally was a great guy. I love Wally. So he's gone now. He was, I know Wally was in the military. A lot of the guys in the show weren't. So we understood a lot. And I'd worked with him before. We actually had the same agent for a while. But yeah, it was a kind of interesting time because a friend of mine, who I hadn't seen in years, called me up from my hometown, Clio, Michigan. And he said he was out here, he wanted to take me to lunch or whatever, so we went out and ate. And he told me he was on the reunion committee for the high school with 25th reunion. And I said, I don't want to go to that, John. John Waterman. I said, I don't want to go to that. I never even graduated. I joined the Army when I was 17. I missed the senior year. He said, oh, everybody loves you. Yeah. You played on all the teams and everything. Yeah. So I said, oh, yeah, all right. He talked me into it. Give me a reason probably to get away from L.A. for a while. So I'd gone to read for Wally. Yeah, he was doing the GI Joe series, and I knew a lot of the people that worked on it. Neil Ross worked on it, and Bill Ratner. A lot of the guys I knew. I hadn't done a lot of animation at the time. I think it's actually probably the first animation thing I'd done. Did a lot of voiceover work. But anyway, I went to read for it. I never even thought much about it. And then I went to the high school reunion. It was in the summer. And I get a call while I was there. He said, the agent says, they want you for that GI Joe series, but it's shooting on Monday or whatever, which you got to be back. And my wife had set me up with some ticket where, it was cheap to, do the whole thing. You had to go on a date and you had to come back on a date. So I had to buy a whole new ticket if I wanted to do the series. I think it cost more than I probably got in the session fee. But anyway, I flew back, and Wally's studio was kind of interesting on Ventura Boulevard, but he was upstairs, and it was the recording where we did the recording. The room was very small, and all these macho guys doing all this GI Joe stuff, and the microphones are real close together. And when people talk about voice acting, they talk about you're using your voice, but you're also acting. And when you're expressing yourself, and there's a lot of macho kind of movement stuff going on, people are swinging their arms and they're kicking their legs, and man, it was like close combat in there. But it was interesting. And Morgan Lofton, she did Baroness. Morgan was also a lady I'd worked with. I knew Morgan quite well, and it was interesting. He had to walk up this. It was a 2-story building. He had to walk up this flight of stairs from Ventura Boulevard. You go into this real small recording room with like eight or 10 people in there, maybe even more, side by side with arms swinging and spit flying, and because the animation, I guess there are people I've worked with people, but not a lot of them who just are able to do the voices. But in this case, there's a lot of acting involved, a lot of physical movement just to do the dialogue. And Wally was very energetic as a director. He was none of these guys that say, okay, let's just roll. He'd go, all right, I want you to say, you're going to kill this guy, so you jump off this cliff, and you're going to stab him to death. And go. Okay, Wally, okay. And no, I want you to jump off the cliff. And then you got the guy next to you. He's on the bottom of the cliff. He's going, ah! Oh, man. Yeah, it was very physical. It was fun. I knew a lot of the guys a lot of animation people were disc jockeys. Neil Ross was a disc jockey. Ratner was a disc jockey. radio people. Yeah, and there's a lot of actors. The guy played Steeler. We had some nice scenes in part two. Really, I mean, that was really an acting job. I really enjoyed that, and the guy I worked with gave me a lot. Chris, I can't think of Chris's last name, but I didn't know him. I'd never met him before, and he was kind of standoffish when we were rehearsing and doing a read through. I always do a read through in the morning, and then usually do the actual voice work in the afternoon. So it's like a day's work. And a lot of what people don't know is at the time they had what they call a 3-for-1. Under the union, you had to do 3 voices for 1 session fee. So you do the main voice, and they usually have you do 2 smaller voices. And I'm not one of those voice guys. They're voice people who just do all kind of voices. To me, I'm an actor, and I can do it. But and then you get, you're doing smaller roles like the Cobra. You're doing a Cobra guard or something. So all I do was I think one of the lines was. A prod in one of the GI Joe things as we let him into a room and said, keep moving. You do something like that. But you had to do the 3 voices. So you got to do the read through. You do it like a rehearsal, and you talk about it. Then you record in the afternoon. So it's a day's work, and then they release everybody unless somebody has to go back and pick up some stuff. So sometimes you have to stay over. So it's a day's work. It's really kind of draining, but. I can't think of Chris's last name. I have to look it up. But he was from Ventura. He was an interesting guy, very interesting guy. Later on, I found out I guess he didn't get along well with himself. He just kind of decided he didn't want to be here anymore and kind of left. But anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I knew a lot of the people, and Wally was a good guy. Wally was ex-military, and I'd say the majority of the guys who did the GI Joe roles were not military, so. Have a true understanding. Wally did. Wally and I had a good communication. I'd been in the Army, and I know Wally had been. It was a World War II or Korea, probably Korea at Wally's age. But he was the earliest, the youngest tank commander in the United States Army at one time. He was a good guy.